My name is Thomas, 32 years old, and until 3 years ago, my little sister Melissa was my best friend. We shared everything growing up from family secrets to midnight snacks. But things changed drastically after she met Brandon, and especially after my accident. The text came on a Tuesday morning. Don't even think about coming to the engagement. I don't want your face ruining a single photo. Before I tell you how my own family tried to break me, drop a comment letting me know where you're watching from, and hit that subscribe button. Trust me, you'll want to stick around to see how I turned their dream engagement into a nightmare they never saw coming. I grew up in a suburb of Chicago, the firstborn son of Gerald and Rachel Davis. Our family looked picture perfect from the outside. Dad ran a successful insurance company, Mom kept a spotless home, and we lived in a neighborhood where everyone competed over lawn maintenance and holiday decorations. Beneath that polished surface, though, our home was a pressure cooker of expectations and conditional love. From an early age, I knew I was different from what my father wanted. Gerald Davis wanted a carbon copy of himself, a son who would worship the family business and continue his legacy of climbing the social ladder. Instead, he got me a kid who would rather sketch buildings and bridges than memorize insurance policies. My sister Melissa arrived 4 years after me, a bubbly little girl with pigtails who followed me everywhere. "Tommy, show me how to draw a castle again," she would beg, sitting next to me at the kitchen table while I sketched. Those were the good days when we formed an unbreakable team against the increasing pressure from our father. Mom was always the peacekeeper, the one who would slip into my room after one of Dad's tirades about my useless artistic interests. "Your father just wants what is best for you," she would say, smoothing my hair. "He had to work so hard to get where he is." That was the pattern. Dad would push, I would resist. Mom would make excuses, and Melissa would watch and learn. Everything changed when Mom got sick. I was 16, Melissa just 12. Breast cancer. The doctors caught it early, but the treatments took a toll. During those 2 years, I stepped up. While Dad buried himself in work to avoid dealing with the emotions of having a sick wife, I became Melissa's primary caretaker. I made her lunches, helped with homework, and made sure she still had some normalcy. "You are the best big brother ever," Melissa told me one night after I had helped her finish a science project. Those words meant everything to me. For those years, we were inseparable. I protected her from Dad's increasingly critical nature, and she gave me a purpose beyond my own dreams. When Mom recovered, something had shifted in our family. Dad looked at me differently. Not with pride for keeping things together, but with something like resentment. Maybe because I had proven I could step up without him. Maybe because Melissa now came to me first with her problems and achievements. "You coddle her," he told me once. "She's going to end up soft like you." By soft, he meant interested in things beyond social status and money. I became the definitive black sheep when I announced I was going to architecture school instead of business school. The argument that night shook the foundation of our house. "No son of mine is going to waste his life drawing pictures," Dad had shouted, his face red with fury. "They are not pictures, they are designs," I corrected, which only enraged him more. "You will never amount to anything," he spat. "Mark my words." Mom stood silently in the corner of the living room, wringing her hands, but saying nothing. Melissa, 16 by then, watched with wide eyes from the staircase. That was the night I saw something change in her. A calculation began behind her eyes, a realization that in our family, Dad's approval came with a price. I put myself through college with scholarships and part-time jobs. I made friends who accepted me for who I was, not what family I came from or what car I drove. Jared became my roommate sophomore year, a computer science major with a wicked sense of humor. Through him, I met Amy and Marcus, who completed our little found family. They saw my passion for architecture and encouraged it, something my blood relatives never did. Meanwhile, Melissa was transforming. The little sister who once begged me to draw castles for her started wearing the right clothes, saying the right things, dating the right boys. She got straight, as joined the right clubs, and slowly she became Dad's perfect child, the one who would never disappoint him. I still tried to maintain our bond. Weekly phone calls, visits when I could afford the trip home. But increasingly, Melissa seemed to view me as an embarrassment, a reminder of the path not taken. We were still cordial, still said "I love you" at the end of calls, but the closeness was evaporating. Then came the accident 3 years ago. I was 29, just starting to make a name for myself at a respected architecture firm in Chicago. One rainy night, a drunk driver ran a red light and plowed into the passenger side of my car. I was lucky to survive, but the shattered glass left me with a jagged scar running from my right temple down to my jaw. 3 surgeries later, it was still prominently visible, an angry red line dividing my face. My friends stood by me through the recovery. My family visited once in the hospital, my mother crying at the sight of my bandaged face, my father awkwardly patting my shoulder and mumbling about good doctors these days. Melissa texted more than she visited, always with excuses about work or traffic. Once I was back on my feet, I noticed the subtle shifts in how my family treated me. Holiday photos where I was positioned at the edge, easy to crop out. Social gatherings where I wasn't introduced to new people. Comments like, "The lighting in here isn't doing you any favors, Thomas." I tried not to let it bother me. I threw myself into my work, and ironically, my career flourished. Clients didn't care about my scar when I was presenting innovative designs that would save them money and win awards. I was promoted to senior architect and given my own team to manage. From the outside, I was thriving. Inside, though, I still carried the wound of my family's gradual rejection, a pain far deeper than any physical scar. Melissa met Brandon Wellington at a charity gala 14 months ago. She called me the next morning, breathless with excitement. "Tommy, I met someone." "Hess, perfect," she gushed. "His family owns Wellington Development Group. You know the people who built that new shopping complex downtown?" I knew them by reputation. Old money major players in Chicago real estate. Exactly the kind of connection that would make our father salivate with social climbing possibilities. "That's great, Mel. Is he nice?" I asked, more concerned with her happiness than his pedigree. "Nice, Thomas, he's a Wellington. His cufflinks probably cost more than your rent." She laughed, but there was an edge to it that made me wince. "But yes, he's very charming. We're going to dinner tomorrow night." Over the following weeks, Brandon was all Melissa talked about. Brandon took her to a 5-star restaurant. Brandon introduced her to the mayor at a fundraiser. Brandon surprised her with a weekend trip to New York. Brandon. He sounded less like a boyfriend and more like a trophy she had won. I tried to be supportive. When she asked me to meet him for lunch, 2 months into their relationship, I agreed immediately. I wanted to like him for her sake. We met at an upscale restaurant where Brandon ordered without looking at the menu and spoke to the server without making eye contact. "So, Thomas, Melissa tells me you're in construction," he asked, swirling his 20-year-old scotch. "Architecture," I corrected with a smile. "I design the buildings, I don't actually build them." Right. Drawing." He nodded dismissively before turning to Melissa. "Darling, did you tell your brother about the governor's ball next month? Your father was quite impressed that we secured tickets." Throughout the lunch, Brandon barely acknowledged me, except to drop names or mention exclusive events. His eyes never quite met mine, always landing somewhere around my chin or ear. I noticed how Melissa watched him with rapt attention, laughing too loudly at his mildly amusing stories, touching his arm at every opportunity. "What do you think?" she asked eagerly when Brandon excused himself to take a call. "He seems successful," I offered, not wanting to hurt her feelings. "Isn't he amazing? Dad absolutely loves him. They played golf last weekend at the club." The mention of our father's approval told me everything I needed to know. Brandon wasn't just a boyfriend. He was Melissa's ticket to the ultimate prize, Gerald Davis's undivided admiration. As their relationship progressed, family gatherings became increasingly uncomfortable. At Thanksgiving, Brandon and my father dominated the conversation, discussing business connections and country club politics, while my mother nodded approvingly and Melissa beamed. I tried to join in several times, but was either talked over or met with brief, patronizing responses. During dessert, I overheard a conversation that crystallized everything. I had gone to the kitchen for water when Melissa and Brandon came in, not realizing I was there. "Your brother's scar is worse than you described," Brandon murmured. "No wonder Hez single." Instead of defending me, Melissa sighed. "I know. It's so awkward when people ask what happened. I wish He'd consider more surgery, or at least learn to use concealer." "Well, just make sure he's not front and center at any events. Your father's business associates might get the wrong impression about your family." I stood frozen by the refrigerator water glass in hand as they continued discussing me like I was a problematic piece of furniture. That night, I left early, claiming a work emergency. No one seemed particularly disappointed to see me go. After that, I noticed Melissa canceling our regular coffee meetups with increasing frequency. Brandon's parents invited us to their lake house. We're checking out wedding venues just in case. Brandon's got box seats for the Bulls game. Each excuse drove another wedge between us. I tried reaching out multiple times. I sent thoughtful texts asking about her day. I mailed her a sketch of the castle she loved as a child for her birthday. I even called our mother to make sure Melissa was okay, worried that perhaps something else was wrong. She's just busy, Thomas' mom said. Brandon's family introduces her to so many important people. It's a lot to manage with her career. The official engagement announcement came via group text 6 months after they met. Brandon popped the question last night at Alinea. I said, yes. Dozens of heart emojis followed along with a close-up of a diamond ring that could probably pay off my student loans. I called immediately, genuinely happy that my sister had found someone she loved, despite my reservations about Brandon. Congratulations, Mel. I'm so happy for you, I said when she answered. Thanks, Tommy. She sounded distracted. Listen, we're at champagne brunch with Brandon's parents. Can I call you later? She never did. Instead, I received a trickle of group texts about how Brandon had hired a top wedding planner, how they were considering destinations in Europe, how the engagement party planning was absolute chaos, but in the best way possible. Nowhere in any of these messages was a direct invitation to me or any acknowledgement of my role as her only brother. Still, I held out hope that the initial excitement had simply made her forgetful. I couldn't imagine not being included in my little sister's wedding festivities. The alternative was too painful to consider. The first concrete sign that something was seriously wrong came 3 months after the engagement announcement. Our cousin Elliot was getting married in Michigan, a small lakeside ceremony that brought together extended family we rarely saw. I drove up from Chicago, looking forward to catching up with Melissa, in a relaxed setting away from Brandon and his influence. The ceremony was lovely, and during the reception, I finally got Melissa alone at the bar. She looked stunning, in a blue silk dress, her hair styled professionally, new highlights catching the light. Hey, stranger, I said, giving her a one-armed hug. Feels like I haven't seen you in months. Been busy, she said, smiling, but glancing over my shoulder, as if looking for escape routes. Wedding planning is insane. So I hear. How's the engagement party coming along? Mom mentioned something about June. A flicker of discomfort crossed her face. Oh, still figuring out details. Brandon's mother has very specific ideas. We chatted for another 10 minutes about neutral topics, her work, my recent project, but she never once mentioned specific wedding dates or events. Every time I tried to ask directly, she deflected with vague responses or changed the subject entirely. Later that evening, I overheard our Aunt Margaret asking Melissa about the gorgeous venue for the engagement party next weekend. My stomach dropped. Next weekend, I hadn't received any invitation or even a mention of a specific date. I tried to convince myself there had been a mistake, an oversight in the chaos of planning. When I returned to Chicago, I scrolled through Melissa's social media, something I rarely did. There it was, a countdown post to the official Wellington Davis engagement celebration at the Blackstone Hotel, one of Chicago's most prestigious venues. The post included the phrase, "Can't wait to celebrate with all our favorite people." Apparently, I wasn't one of them. I waited 2 days, hoping an invitation would arrive. Nothing came. Finally, with the event just 5 days away, I called Melissa directly. Hey Mel, quick question about the engagement party at the Blackstone this weekend. The line went silent for a moment. Then, who told you about that? The defensiveness in her voice confirmed my worst fears. I saw your post, I said, trying to keep my tone light. I was wondering if my invitation got lost or something. Another pause. Thomas the First. We had to make some difficult decisions about the guest list. Brandon's family has so many important connections, and the venue has strict capacity limits. Your brother? I said, the words coming out more hurt than I intended. I thought that would automatically put me on the list. It's complicated. Her voice hardened. Brandon's family is very image conscious, and this party is being photographed for Social Chicago magazine. And what does that have to do with me attending my sister's engagement party? The dam broke. Don't play dumb, Thomas. You know exactly what I'm talking about. The scar. Okay, Brandon's mother specifically asked about you after seeing family photos, and I just can't deal with explaining it to everyone all night. My hand instinctively went to my face fingers, tracing the raised line of tissue. You're excluding me because of how I look. Don't be dramatic. It's one party. The wedding will be different, she said, though her tone held no conviction. Will it? Or will you find another excuse then too? This attitude isn't helping, she snapped. This is exactly why we thought it would be better if you weren't there. Everything always has to be about you and your feelings. Before I could respond, my phone buzzed with an incoming text. From Melissa. I pulled the phone away from my ear to look at it, not understanding why she'd text while we were talking. The message left me breathless. Don't even think about coming to the engagement. I don't want your face ruining a single photo. Did you just text me? I asked, my voice hollow. What? No, I'm talking to you. I just got a text from your number saying not to come because my face would ruin the photos. Silence. Then Brandon was helping me draft that earlier. He must have sent it by accident. While we're on the phone, Melissa, just be honest with me. Fine. Yes, I don't want you there. Is that what you want to hear? The Wellingtons are the most important family in Chicago, and this is my chance to make a good impression. I can't have everyone staring and whispering about my brother with the disfigured face. The word disfigured hit me like a physical blow. I had never heard Melissa speak so cruelly with such cold calculation. I see was all I could manage to say. Thomas, sorry, but you have to understand the position I'm in. These connections are important for my future, for our family's future. Right. Well, congratulations on your engagement. I hope the photos turn out perfectly. I hung up and sat in my apartment staring at nothing for what felt like hours. Eventually, I called my mother hoping for some support, or at least an explanation. Mom, did you know Melissa and Brandon didn't invite me to the engagement party? A heavy sigh came through the phone. Thomas, honey, Melissa explained the situation to us. The venue is very exclusive, and Brandon's family has certain expectations. So you're okay with this? Your own son being excluded because of a scar. No one is excluding you because of the scar, she said, but her voice lacked conviction. It's just that these society events have certain aesthetics. Your father, and I think it's best not to make waves. The Wellingtons are very important people. More important than your son. Don't be childish, Thomas. This isn't about importance. It's about being practical. Melissa has a chance at an extraordinary life with Brandon. We shouldn't jeopardize that over one party. After hanging up with my mother, I called Jared, my closest friend since college. Unlike my family, he listened without interruption as I poured out the whole ugly story. That's seriously messed up, he said, when I finished. Your own sister is ashamed of you because of a scar, and your parents are backing her up. Apparently the almighty Wellingtons can't be associated with imperfection, I said bitterly. Wait, the Blackstone Hotel. Isn't that the place you did that renovation design for last year? The one with the rooftop garden? I froze. Jared was right. The Blackstone had undergone a major renovation 14 months ago, and my firm had handled the architectural redesign of several key spaces. I had personally designed the rooftop garden that had since become the hotel's most requested event space. The very space where Melissa and Brandon would be celebrating. The owner, Victor, he still sends you Christmas cards, right? Jared pressed. Yeah, I said slowly. We got along really well during the project. He even invited me to his daughter's wedding. So Melissa and Brandon are using your connection to host their party at a venue that probably wouldn't have been available to them otherwise, while explicitly excluding you because of your appearance. The irony was almost too perfect. I had created the beautiful space where my sister would celebrate her engagement while being told I was too ugly to attend. That night, I barely slept turning over this new information and wondering what, if anything, I should do with it. The week following my conversation with Melissa was one of the worst of my life. I couldn't concentrate at work, making embarrassing mistakes during an important client presentation that earned me a concerned talk from my boss. Everything okay, Thomas? He asked, after pulling me into his office. This isn't like you. Just some family stuff, I mumbled, ashamed that I was letting it affect my performance. Take a few days if you need to. The Richardson project can wait. I declined his offer, knowing that sitting alone in my apartment would only give me more time to dwell on the rejection. At least at work, I could pretend everything was normal for a few hours at a time. 3 days before the engagement party, my father called. This was unusual in itself, as Gerald Davis rarely initiated contact unless he needed something. I almost didn't answer, but curiosity won out. "Hello. Thomas, what the hell did you say to your sister?" he barked without preamble. "She's been crying all afternoon." No greeting, no. "How are you?" Just immediate accusation. Typical. I asked why I wasn't invited to her engagement party. I said, fighting to keep my voice level. She told me it's because my face would ruin the photos. Don't be dramatic. That's not what she said. Actually, that's exactly what she texted me. Word for word. A pause. Well, you have to understand the pressure she's under. The Wellingtons are practically Chicago royalty. This party could establish connections that would benefit the entire family. Including me. The son you're embarrassed to be seen with. Now you're just feeling sorry for yourself, he snapped. This attitude is exactly why Melissa is hesitant to include you. Nobody wants a downer at a celebration. Dad, she's my sister. My little sister who I helped raise when Mom was sick. And she's excluding me because of a scar I got in an accident that wasn't my fault. Life isn't fair, Thomas. Some people overcome their hardships. Others use them as an excuse to wallow. Melissa has worked hard to position herself well in society. She shouldn't have to risk that, because you're feeling left out. Every word was like a knife, not just because of their cruelty, but because they confirmed what I had always suspected in my family's eyes. I had never been good enough. Not before the accident, and certainly not after. I see, I said quietly. Well, tell Melissa not to worry. I won't crash her perfect party. Good, my father said, sounding satisfied. And Thomas, try to be more understanding. Not everything is about you. After hanging up, I paced my apartment, a pressure building in my chest that felt like it might explode. I picked up a glass from my coffee table and hurled it against the wall, watching it shatter with a strange detachment. The momentary release didn't help. I opened my laptop and pulled up Instagram, a masochistic impulse driving me to check Melissa's page. She had posted more photos of engagement party preparations. Final venue walkthrough. The Blackstone Hotel rooftop is absolute perfection for our special day. So grateful to have connections that got us this exclusive space when it's booked solid for months. Connections. My connections. The ones they were happy to use while pushing me aside. As I scrolled, another notification appeared on my phone. A text from my father. Maybe if you weren't so pathetic, you'd be worth inviting. I stared at the words, not quite believing a parent could say something so cruel to their child. I sat down hard on my sofa, the phone falling from my numb fingers. A strange calm settled over me as something inside quietly broke. I don't know how long I sat there before my doorbell rang. When I didn't answer, a key turned in the lock. Jared, Amy, and Marcus filed in, carrying takeout bags and concerned expressions. You weren't answering texts, Amy said, simply setting down food containers. We got worried. I wordlessly handed her my phone with my father's text still displayed. Her eyes widened, then hardened as she passed it to the others. Okay, that's it, Marcus said firmly. These people are toxic as hell, Thomas. Family doesn't treat family like this. He's right, Jared added. I've known you for over a decade, and I've watched you bend over backwards trying to please these people. For what? So they can treat you like garbage. Amy sat beside me, her hand on my shoulder. You know what's messed up. You're the one who introduced me to Victor at the Blackstone when I was looking for a venue for our company gala. He specifically mentioned how the rooftop garden was your design and how he's had to turn down dozens of requests for that space because it's so popular. I looked up sharply. What? Yeah, he said something about having a waiting list 6 months long, but he made an exception for me because you're like family to him. The pieces connected in my mind. So, Melissa and Brandon probably name-dropped you to get the venue Marcus finished. There's no way they'd have booked it on such short notice otherwise. Check their social media, Jared suggested. $10 says they've been bragging about the venue. Sure enough, Brandon's Instagram was full of smug posts about securing the most exclusive rooftop in Chicago and how some venues just understand the importance of the Wellington name. Melissa's posts were even worse, with one caption reading, "When the venue manager finds out who's in your family, doors magically open." They were using my professional relationships to elevate their social status while simultaneously deeming me too unsightly to attend. The hypocrisy was staggering. "You know what you need to do, right?" Marcus said quietly. I did. For the first time in my life, I needed to stand up to my family, not with anger or retaliation, but with the simple act of refusing to be treated as less than human. The decision crystallized in that moment, bringing with it a strange sense of calm. "I'm going to call Victor," I said. The next morning, I called Victor Marino, owner of the Blackstone Hotel. We had developed a friendship during the 6 months I spent designing the hotel's rooftop renovation, bonding over our shared love of classic architecture and Italian cooking. "Thomas, it's been too long." His warm voice boomed through the phone. "How are you, my friend?" "I've been better, honestly," I admitted. "Victor, I need to talk to you about an event at your hotel this weekend. An engagement party on the rooftop." "Ah, yes. The Wellington Davis celebration." "Wait," he paused. "Davis, any relation to you?" "My sister," I confirmed. "And that's part of why I'm calling." I explained the situation, keeping my tone even and factual. I forwarded him the text from Melissa and my father as proof. By the time I finished, Victor was cursing in rapid Italian. "Disgraceful. Using your name to get special treatment while treating you this way. Thomas, when your sister's fiancé called, he heavily implied you had personally recommended the venue. He said, and I quote, 'Thomas Davis assured us you'd take special care of his sister's engagement. That's the only reason I bumped another client to accommodate them on short notice.'" "I had no idea," I said, genuinely shocked at the level of manipulation. "What would you like me to do?" Victor asked. "Say the word, and the booking is canceled. I won't have my venue used by people who treat my friend this way." I hesitated. Part of me, the part still wounded, and raw, wanted to say yes immediately. To picture Melissa and Brandon and my parents showing up to find the doors locked would be undeniably satisfying. But the more rational part of me needed to think this through. "Can I get back to you on that? I need to consider the implications." "Of course. The event is in 3 days. Let me know by tomorrow afternoon at the latest." After hanging up, I called the only person I knew who could offer impartial advice, Dr. Sarah Carter, my therapist since the accident. She agreed to see me that afternoon. "This is an incredibly difficult situation," she acknowledged after I laid out everything. "What are you hoping to achieve if you do cancel the venue?" "Justice consequences for how they've treated me," I suggested, then sighed. "Honestly, I don't know." "Those are external outcomes," she noted. "What about for yourself? What would canceling or not canceling mean for your own healing?" I thought about it. If I do nothing, I feel like I'm accepting their treatment, saying it's okay to dehumanize me because of a scar. But if I cancel the venue, am I just being vindictive, stooping to their level? "There's a difference between revenge and boundaries," Dr. Carter said carefully. "Revenge is about hurting others to make yourself feel better. Boundaries are about refusing to participate in your own mistreatment." "So, which is this?" "Only you can answer that," she replied. "But I will say this. Sometimes the kindest thing you can do for toxic people is to show them their actions have consequences. Not to punish them, but because it's the only way some people learn." I left her office with those words echoing in my mind. That evening my friends came over again, and we talked through the options. "Whatever you decide, we support you," Amy assured me. "But for what it's worth, I don't think it's wrong to stand up for yourself. They're using your professional reputation to get special treatment while treating you like you're not good enough to be seen with them," Marcus pointed out. "That's next-level hypocrisy." Jared, always the most pragmatic, asked, "What about legal issues? Could they sue you or Victor if the venue cancels?" "I checked with a lawyer friend," I said. "The contract has a clause allowing cancellation due to misrepresentation in the booking process. Since they claimed I personally recommended them when I didn't, Victor has grounds to cancel." As we discussed the situation, I found myself looking out my apartment window. By sheer coincidence, my building was just 2 blocks from the Blackstone, with my balcony offering a partial view of the famous rooftop garden I had designed. I could literally watch the party from my home if I wanted to. The irony wasn't lost on me. I had poured my heart into creating that beautiful space, imagining the happy celebrations it would host. Never did I think I would be explicitly banned from one of those celebrations by my own family. That night, after my friends left, I set up my small drafting table on the balcony. I could see the twinkling lights of the rooftop garden in the distance. The space where in 3 days my sister would celebrate her engagement without me. I took out my phone and typed a message to Victor. "I've made my decision. Can we meet tomorrow?" His reply came immediately. "My office, 10 a.m. As I prepared for bed, my phone buzzed with a new Instagram notification. Melissa had posted again. 24 hours of prep begin tomorrow. Can't wait for the absolute dream engagement party at the Blackstone. Sorry to everyone who couldn't get this venue, but I guess some of us just have the right connections." Each word strengthened my resolve. This wasn't about revenge. It was about refusing to be used and discarded, about standing up for my own dignity after years of diminishment. The next morning I met with Victor in his elegant office overlooking Lake Michigan. "I've thought about it carefully," I told him, "and I want to cancel the venue." Victor nodded gravely. "Consider it done. I'll handle everything professionally. The official reason will be unexpected maintenance issues." "Will this cause problems for you?" I asked, suddenly concerned. "About dragging him into my family drama?" "Not at all. The family that was originally scheduled for this date will be thrilled to get their spot back. And frankly," he added with a flash of indignation, "I don't appreciate being manipulated by name-dropping, especially when that name belongs to a friend who was being mistreated." We discussed the logistics. The cancellation would be announced the morning of the event, too late for Melissa and Brandon to secure another premium venue. Victor would personally call Brandon to deliver the news about the emergency maintenance situation. As I left his office, I felt a complex mix of emotions. There was satisfaction, yes, but also a deep sadness that it had come to this. I hadn't wanted a war with my family. I had only wanted to be treated with basic respect and inclusion. That evening, I set up a comfortable chair on my balcony, positioned to see the Blackstone rooftop. I prepared myself for the fallout, knowing that once my family discovered my role in the cancellation, there would likely be no going back. Bridges would be burned that might never be rebuilt. Yet for the first time in years, I felt a sense of peace. I was no longer allowing myself to be the family doormat, the imperfect son they could use when convenient and hide away when not. Tomorrow would bring chaos, but it would also bring the first day of a new chapter in my life. One where I valued myself enough to demand basic dignity even from those who should have given it freely. The day of the engagement party dawned bright and clear, a perfect spring morning in Chicago. From my balcony, I could see workers setting up on the Blackstone rooftop, arranging furniture, and stringing lights, unaware that in a few hours they would be taking it all down again. At precisely 9 a.m., Victor would make the call to Brandon. I had asked him to wait until morning to minimize the chance they could find an alternate venue. It wasn't about maximizing their inconvenience, but about ensuring the consequence was meaningful. I made coffee and tried to distract myself with work, but my attention kept drifting to the phone that sat silent on my coffee table. I had turned it off the night before, not wanting to deal with the inevitable barrage once the news broke. At 9:30, curiosity got the better of me. I turned on my phone and immediately it began buzzing with notifications. 6 missed calls from Melissa, 4 from my father, 3 from my mother, dozens of text messages, each more frantic than the last. From Melissa Thomas, "Call me now." "Something happened with the venue." From Dad, "Fix this immediately. I know you're behind it." From Mom, "Please call us back, honey." Melissa's devastated. I put the phone down without responding and walked to my balcony. Through my binoculars, I could see activity on the rooftop had already changed. Workers were removing decorations rather than setting them up. Within an hour, the space was returned to its normal state, ready for regular hotel guests rather than a private party. At 11 a.m., my doorbell rang. I ignored it. It rang again, followed by insistent knocking. Finally, a key turned in the lock. Only my mother had a spare key to my apartment. She stood in my living room looking distraught. "Thomas, what have you done?" Hello to you too, Mom, I said calmly. Would you like some coffee? Don't play games. The Blackstone canceled Melissa's engagement party this morning. Claimed it was maintenance issues, but Brandon spoke to someone on staff who let slip that the owner personally intervened. The same owner who's your friend. I didn't deny it. Yes, Victor Marino is my friend. Hess also a man of integrity, who doesn't appreciate being manipulated. Manipulated? What are you talking about? Brandon and Melissa name dropped me to get that venue. Implied, I had personally requested special treatment for them, all while explicitly uninviting me, because my face would ruin their photos. My mother had the grace to look uncomfortable. Thomas, you know how these society events are. Appearances matter. Yes, they do. And it appears my family is willing to use my professional connections while deeming me too unsightly to be acknowledged publicly. She sank onto my couch, suddenly looking tired. Your father is furious. Brandon's parents are humiliated. They had invited the governor, Thomas. The governor? I'm sorry that actions have consequences. I said, not feeling sorry at all. You've ruined your sister's engagement celebration out of spite. No. I simply refuse to allow my work and reputation to be used by people who don't respect me as a human being. The venue they were so excited about, I designed it. My firm renovated that rooftop. The connection they were bragging about was me, the brother they're ashamed of. My mother stared at me, finally understanding. Oh, Thomas. Did you know Dad texted me? Saying I'm too pathetic to be worth inviting? Did you know Melissa explicitly said my face would ruin their photos? Tell me, Mom, at what point was I supposed to just accept being treated this way? She had no answer. My phone began ringing again. Melissa. I answered and put it on speaker. How could you do this to me? She screamed, without preamble. The biggest day of my life, and you ruined it out of jealousy. Hello to you too, Melissa. Fix this right now. Call your friend and tell him to honor our reservation. I can't do that. Why not? Because you're bitter and lonely and can't stand to see me happy. Because actions have consequences. You and Brandon lied to get that venue using my name without permission, while simultaneously telling me I wasn't welcome because of my appearance. It was one party. Stop being so sensitive about your face. It's not about my face, Melissa. It's about being treated with basic human dignity by my own family. In the background, I could hear Brandon shouting and my father's distinctive angry rumble. Then Brandon's voice came through clearly, as he apparently grabbed the phone. Listen here, you spiteful little man. Do you have any idea who my family is? We can destroy your career with one phone call. No one will hire an architect who sabotages his own sister's engagement. I'm not concerned, I replied evenly. My work speaks for itself, and unlike some people, I don't need family connections to succeed. My father came on next. Thomas, you fix this right now or you're no longer part of this family. Interesting ultimatum from someone who just texted me that I'm too pathetic to be worth inviting to family events. I've spent years trying to earn your approval, Dad. I'm done. Either you accept me as I am, scar and all, or you don't. But you don't get to use my connections while treating me like something to be hidden away. I hung up and turned to my mother, who sat frozen on my couch. You should go. They'll need your support figuring out how to explain to the governor why the event was canceled. Thomas, please. Can't you see this from their perspective? The Wellingtons are so important for your father's business, for Melissa's future. And what about my future, Mom? Does that matter to any of you? She had no answer, just gathered her purse and walked to the door. I hope you're satisfied, she said quietly. I'm not satisfied. I'm sad that it came to this. But I respect myself too much to accept being treated this way anymore. After she left, I returned to my balcony. In the distance, I could see a cluster of well-dressed people on the sidewalk outside the Blackstone. Even from this distance, I could recognize my sister's blonde hair and my father's distinctive stance arms gesticulating wildly as he presumably berated some hotel employee. I watched as they gradually dispersed guests in fancy attire getting into cars or walking away in small groups, the dream engagement dissolving before my eyes. My phone buzzed with a text from Victor. It's done. Your brother-in-law to be tried to threaten me with lawyers. I informed him that misrepresenting a recommendation is grounds for cancellation under our contract. Also told him that insulting the architect who designed our award-winning rooftop was particularly poor form. I smiled despite the heaviness in my chest. Thank you, Victor. I owe you. You owe me nothing. Friends stand up for friends. As the afternoon wore on, my phone continued to explode with angry messages from Melissa, Brandon, and my father. I turned it off again, needing space from the vitriol. Around 8 that evening, a soft knock came at my door. I opened it to find my mother standing there again, looking decades older than she had that morning. "May I come in?" she asked quietly. I stepped aside, allowing her entry. "If you're here to yell at me again, I'm not interested." "I'm not here to yell," she said, perching on the edge of my couch. "I'm here to talk. Really talk for the first time in years." "I've been a terrible mother," were the first words out of my mother's mouth as she sat in my living room that night. They were so unexpected that I could only stare at her. "What?" "I failed you, Thomas. I've been failing you for years." Her eyes filled with tears. "When your father started pushing you away for being different, I should have stood up for you. When Melissa began treating you like an embarrassment after your accident, I should have put a stop to it." I sat across from her, cautious, but listening. "Today, after everything fell apart, Brandon showed his true colors," she continued. "He screamed at Melissa in front of everyone, blamed her for not controlling her freak brother. Your father was more concerned about what the Wellingtons would think than how his daughter was being treated." "And that surprised you?" I asked quietly. "It shouldn't have," she admitted. But seeing it so clearly, watching Gerald care more about appearances than his own daughter's feelings, it was like seeing our entire family dynamic laid bare. We talked for hours that night. Really talked, perhaps for the first time in our lives. My mother acknowledged how she had enabled my father's status obsession, how she had taught Melissa by example that conditional love was normal, how she had failed to protect me from their judgment. "I can't promise things will change overnight," she said, as she prepared to leave. "Your father is set in his ways, and Melissa has been following his example for so long. But I want you to know that I see you, Thomas. I see how strong you've become despite us, not because of us. And I'm so deeply sorry for every time I made you feel less than worthy." She hugged me tightly before leaving. "I love you, scars and all. I hope someday you can forgive me for forgetting that matters more than what anyone thinks." The following days were quiet. My father didn't call. Melissa sent one text saying she and Brandon were reevaluating their relationship after his public outburst. I focused on work, on my friends, on rebuilding my sense of self after years of slow erosion. 3 months passed. Summer bloomed in Chicago, bringing with it a sense of renewal. I heard through my mother that Melissa and Brandon had postponed their wedding indefinitely. My father still refused to speak to me, blaming me for destroying his daughter's chance at an advantageous marriage. Then one rainy Tuesday, a familiar name appeared on my caller ID. Uncle Michael, my father's younger brother, who had been estranged from our family for nearly a decade. "Thomas, been too long, nephew," his gruff voice boomed through the phone. "Uncle Mike. This is unexpected. Your mother called me, told me everything that happened. Gotta say I'm proud of you for standing up to Gerald. God knows I tried for years before I finally gave up." I had forgotten that Uncle Michael had his own history with my father's rejection. He'd been cut off from the family after choosing to marry a divorced woman with 2 children, something my status-conscious father deemed beneath the Davis name. "I'm having a cookout this weekend at my place in Milwaukee," he continued. "Would love it if you could come. Meet the family, catch up. Been too many years." I accepted the invitation and found myself that Saturday surrounded by warmth and acceptance from a branch of my family I barely knew. Uncle Mike's wife Susan hugged me, like we'd known each other forever. Their blended family of now adult children welcomed me, without a single glance at my scar. "Gerald did to you exactly what he did to me," Uncle Mike told me as we sat on his deck that evening. "Decided I wasn't good enough, because I chose love over status. The difference is you stood up to him in a way I never did. You made him face consequences." That visit began a healing process I hadn't known I needed. I began regular trips to Milwaukee, building relationships with the family members who valued character over appearance. Meanwhile, my mother continued her own journey, visiting me weekly for dinner, slowly rebuilding our relationship with genuine conversation and honesty. 6 months after the engagement party fiasco, I launched a scholarship program through my architecture firm for students with facial differences who wanted to pursue design careers. The Thomas Davis Visibility Scholarship was my way of turning pain into purpose, ensuring that others with visible differences would never be made to feel they should remain hidden. The day after the scholarship announcement made the local news, my father appeared at my office door. "May I come in?" he asked stiffly. I gestured to the chair across from my desk, noting how much older he looked than when I'd last seen him. "Your mother tells me you're doing well," he began awkwardly. "I am. And this scholarship program, it's receiving positive press." Of course he would focus on the public relations aspect. That's not why I created it. "No, I suppose not," he cleared his throat. "Thomas, I've come to discuss our situation." "Our situation?" "This rift in the family. It's been difficult for your mother, and for Melissa." I noticed he didn't mention it being difficult for himself. "I imagine it has been." "Melissa and Brandon have ended their engagement," he said, as if this were news to me. His true character became apparent after the incident. "The Wellingtons are not the kind of people we thought they were." I resisted the urge to say I told you so. Instead, I asked, "What do you want, Dad?" "Your mother seems to think we owe you an apology." The words clearly pained him. Perhaps there is some truth to that. It wasn't exactly a heartfelt admission of wrongdoing, but from Gerald Davis, it was practically prostration. "I appreciate that," I said carefully. "But an apology only matters if behavior changes." "What would you have me do?" he asked, genuinely seeming at a loss. "Accept me as I am. Stop measuring everything and everyone by their social value. Recognize that worth isn't determined by appearance or status." He frowned, these concepts clearly foreign to his worldview. "I can try," he said finally. "For your mother's sake." It wasn't the reconciliation I might have dreamed of, but it was honest. My father would likely never fully change his values, but he was offering what he could, an attempt at acceptance, however imperfect. 2 weeks later, I hosted a dinner at my apartment. My mother came, as did Melissa, looking humbled by her experience with Brandon. Uncle Mike and Aunt Susan drove down from Milwaukee, and my friends, my chosen family who had supported me unconditionally, completed the circle. As we sat around my table, there was an initial awkwardness, old hurts, and new boundaries being navigated. But slowly, conversation flowed. Laughter happened. My father didn't attend, having a prior commitment, but that was okay. This was about building something new, not forcing something old to work. Melissa pulled me aside after dinner. "I don't know if you can ever forgive me," she said, eyes downcast. "What I said about your scar, it was cruel and shallow. Brandon brought out the worst in me, but that's no excuse." "We all make mistakes, Mel," I told her. "The question is what we learn from them." "I've learned that the people who truly love you don't care what you look like or what doors you can open for them," she said quietly. "I'm trying to be more like the little sister you deserved all along." That night, as my guests departed, I stood on my balcony looking toward the Blackstone Hotel. The rooftop garden glowed with lights, hosting some other celebration now. I felt no bitterness, only a sense of peace. The scar on my face hadn't changed. The world's potential judgment hadn't changed. What had changed was my willingness to accept mistreatment, even from those who were supposed to love me most. True family, I had learned, isn't about shared DNA. It's about shared respect. It's about seeing each other's whole humanity, imperfections, and choosing love anyway. Sometimes that means walking away from toxic connections. Sometimes it means giving people the chance to do better when they're ready. Most importantly, I learned that standing up for yourself isn't selfish or petty. It's necessary and brave. The moment I decided I deserved better treatment was the moment I began to heal, not just from my family's rejection, but from a lifetime of seeking approval from those who could never give it unconditionally. My face tells a story now, one of survival and strength. But the real story isn't visible on my skin. It's in the boundaries I've learned to set, the authentic connections I've forged, and the peace I've made with being imperfectly authentically myself. Have you ever had to stand up to family members who tried to make you feel less than worthy? What boundaries did you set to protect yourself? Share your story in the comments below. And don't forget to like this video if it resonated with you. Subscribe for more real-life stories about finding strength in unexpected places. Remember, sometimes, the family we choose is more healing than the family we're born into. Thank you for listening, and I hope my journey helps you find the courage to demand the respect you deserve.